Hi everybody, welcome to the Squero, Homo Faber television studio and conference hall. Here during the event, we welcome artisans, artists, designers and other experts to share their experiences and their stories. Today, I am very glad to introduce the second of a range of 6 talks organized in collaboration between the Michelangelo Foundation, who is the master of this wonderful exhibition here, and the Institut National des Métiers d'Art, or French Crafts Council, based in Paris, which I am happy to represent here. Our institution supports the development of crafts in France, but also builds bridges and encourages the reflection about craftsmanship all around the world. Here, this exhibition, Homo Faber, is a wonderful showcase of what European craftsmanship has done best over the past decades or even centuries. Thus, Europe is very often seen as the cradle of craftsmanship. And just look at this exhibition to see at a glance the vitality and excellence of European craftsmanship until now. At the same time, is European craftsmanship really the first and the best in the world? Aren't we a bit too inward-looking? Of course, European artisans export their creations all over the world, but don't we have something to learn also from the other continents? Are the customers from the other parts of the world looking for something special when they buy European crafts? Shouldn't we adapt our production to their taste and culture to conquer these markets? And are we able to do so? On the other hand, other continents, other countries also have their exceptional skills and techniques. In which way are they unique and in high demand in Europe? Today, we will discuss the case of 3 Asian countries that, even though they are very near from each other, have very different backgrounds and histories. Nevertheless, one can assert that either Korea, Japan, or China are very important countries for craftsmanship. What are their strengths and weaknesses in comparison to ours? These are a few of the questions we are going to discuss today with our 2 guests, Beatrice Quette and Grace Zhan. We will start with Beatrice. Beatrice Quette is the curator of Asian collection at the Decorative Arts Museum in Paris. She is the author of several books. And for those of you who come to Paris in the next months, I just recommend to go to the wonderful exhibition she is working on now, Japonisme, Japan, Japonism, Objet inspiré, inspired object. So this exhibition is starting on November 15 in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris. I just really encourage you to go. Beatrice will tell us a bit about different crafts from China, Korea, and Japan, more or less famous. Please, Beatrice, we welcome you on stage.
Thank you very much, Muriel, for this very nice introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank the Michelangelo Foundation and the Institut National des Métiers d'Art, and most specifically to Muriel Prouet and Métiers who very kindly proposed me to be with you today and to participate to this debate. As you just understand, Muriel, China, Korea, and Japan have very different histories. and backgrounds regarding their production of craft and art design, not only in their history in the development, but also in the organization and in the relationship with their political power. This might explain today's situation also. Even if the influence of international market has been taken in account, not to say is crucial today. Let's start with China. Of course, you would understand I had to choose, for 10 minutes speak, some examples of each country, which is, of course, might be, I hope not too caricatural, but will show you some focus on this position of creation and the relationship today with craftsmanship, design, and artists. In China, the development of craft have been for a long time linked with the imperial power. And I will not tell you the whole history of it, because we can spend many hours, even if the view is wonderful, and would be nice too. But very linked in the last dynasty of the Qin dynasty with the imperial power and installing even imperial workshops in the Forbidden City. This is, of course, very different in the 20th century, and Grace Zhan will tell you more about this history, but I want to go now in the 20s, 2000, to show you some example of relationship, I think, very beautiful and interesting between craftsmanship and tradition and art today. Here is some examples of the Shangxia in porcelain. Does it work? Yes. Porcelain, two different aspects. This technique of eggshell porcelain was very important into the sorry, I didn't get. Okay. Into the production since the 15th century as and seen as a luxury pieces. And here, this technique was again used by Shangxia to do this amazing new design bowl, because it's a huge size bowl, so you can't use it as a bowl, but plays with the quality of the transparency of the porcelain using this old technique. Sorry. Also used by for little traveling set pieces for tea, and also here you have traditional technique of decoration used by new artists. In the case of furniture, even if tradition is sometimes very strong in the inspiration of some productions, as you can see on the top left here, you also see how with new technique, specifically with carbon fiber, you can do inspired by tradition furniture, but with very different aspects, either in technique, in weight, and also in color, because this is blue lacquer. And also you can see how artists now can also use traditional shape of ladder to make a piece of art, not with the use anymore. Lacquer also is very important in China, and some artists like Kangaroo use traditional techniques, but made it with new shapes, even when it is for a box for inkstone, so very traditional object, but with a new shape, really reviewed with a new contemporary shape profile. So the purpose now for China might be, but Grace might talk more about that. I would say the challenge for China now and for design now in China and for craftsmanship, it might be having young artists, young designer, getting new inspiration using all craftsmanship, also giving a new idea of what made in China means today, and renew this idea from the 18th century, when made in China mean luxury and excellency. As far as Korea is concerned, the economical dynamic recent in Korea made things very different for also for design and craftsmen. I'm going to use some selected examples that we shown in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in 2015, when we host 3 exhibitions of design, fashion design and graphic design, with a selection of 150 artists made by the Korea Craft and Design Fund. And some of them will show you, I hope, and we can debate of that after, where using traditional techniques like mother of pearl inlaid in lacquer on chest like this, or on the little box on the top slide, or very different way, more contemporary, we might say, with the artist on the right side. Also in ceramic, it's very important to see that craftsmanship was saved, we could say, and renewed with inspiration since the year 2000. Important to say that crafts were integrated in the 1950s in Korean universities. Very important also to say that in the 60s, craftsman diploma were created, and as like that, we see that education also helped the development and the survival of these crafts that are so important in creation today. In the 1970s, traditional craft became part of the cultural heritage officially. In the 80s, with the Olympic game of the Summer Olympic Games, the influence and the affluence of Westerners also opened the minds. And what was crucial in that is the fact that people have their own computer since the 1990s, and they have an open window on the world and get new inspiration also thanks to this way. Collaboration with industry and craft started in the years 2000. And you can see here, for example, many examples of what happened in porcelain and stoneware, using traditional techniques, but changing the shapes, the scales of the shapes, using a celadon glaze, very old tradition in Korea for centuries, and using it either on incense burner, a traditional shape too, but reviewed with a contemporary size and scale, or used by another artist to do these drop vases where you can only put one flower, but you see also the quality of the technique. And this excellency is possible thanks to the university where all those students learn their craft. Technology came into the field of craftsmanship, and nowadays are also learn in these universities. And sometimes, that's one of the critics, maybe these university is too technical, or too technical in their the way they approach the craftsmanship, the craft. And this is maybe one of the best examples on the left of this multi-layer porcelain dyed with different colors, which is a tour de force, totally. Also using porcelain and the use of the emptiness on the right side. Traditional furniture shapes traditional NG paper made of mulberry tree, also a different aspect of renewed inspiration and using and mixing tradition and industry. In Japan, I'm sorry, it's very fast, but in Japan, I took just one example that I think is very relevant to the situation of Japanese craft today. With the global market, you know that everybody can buy cheap and very nice designed object in some anonymous design boutique that I would not name, but you know them. And of course, all these craftsmen who learn their skill by their father, who also learn their skill by their father, etc., etc. Some 6 companies decided to group themselves in a group called Go On. And I will show you some of their creation very quickly. So a bucket for the rice or for water, for food, that now is imagined in collaboration with a Danish designer, Thomas Lake, a stool, another way of using this extremely high level skill. Wire netware using for kitchen utensil in Kyoto, but now used for lamps, for example. Bamboo knitting also for flower arrangements, vase, but now transformed into bags or interior design accessories, or cutlery, also designed in collaboration with this same Danish brand. Same for the copper tea caddies used then for pieces of pieces of furniture, or also for tea set. And these artists, and I will end by that, so maybe we'll start the debate. These artists also collaborate with Panasonic Design and created new objects with high technology skills of the brand, but also their high hand technology and skill. And maybe we can say that Japan, I can call them, we make the future with our hands. I hope it will, we will start afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. I would like now to introduce our second speaker today, Grace Zhan. Grace used to work for 12 years for luxury brands and is now a consultant and manages the European branch of the Chinese lifestyle brand ZENS. She's going to tell us about the recent introduction of and the importance of design in today's China, and she will explain how the brand ZENS renew Chinese craftsmanship and adapt it to contemporary needs in China and abroad. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you very much. I would like to say thank you to Homo Faber and Institut National des Métiers d'Art for inviting us all here. I'm very happy to take part of this reference. So I'm going to talk about China, how China is focusing on design today. As you know, China is an old country with 5,000 years culture. And as we know also, China since the middle of the 19th century, China was close to the world for the different reasons, for the political reason. The Chinese people was, they didn't know what was happening outside of China, so the country was closed. And at the end of the Cultural Revolution and at the beginning of 1980s, the Chinese president Deng Xiaoping decided to carry out economic reforms in China. And that was an opportunity for the Western companies to produce the products in China because of the cheap labor and the high quality craftsmanship. Since 20 years, Chinese factory made all kinds of products for the world. And Chinese company began to realize the importance of the design and the value of the craftsmanship. And from the year of 2000, and more Chinese students went to America, went to Europe to study design. And when they finished their studies, they came back to China and they built up their design studios, and they built up their brands. And the Chinese designers are very proud of their culture. They try to embody the cultural heritage of Chinese art of living by the design. So we know in China we drink a lot of tea. The tea culture is a tradition that has continued for thousands of years. So the designer, they begin to buy the products very closely to the daily life of the customers. They begin by the tea service design. So we are going to see, no, not this one. Yes. So this kind of tea service was created 10 years ago. So it's like traditional one, nothing special. It was 10 years ago when the designer began to design the products. And now when we see 10 years after, today, this is from the brand ZENS. So today we will see the form is different. It's modern. It's very simple. It's very contemporary. And we will see the upper part, we use the bamboo. The bamboo crafts is very ancient in China. And to avoid being burned, so we use this craft to surround the shape of the teapot. And this is the nesting fruit basket. It's made of two materials, the bamboo and the porcelain. And this is, we just renew the traditional forms. We change the traditional forms with the porcelain part. So the traditional bamboo basket now is very modern. And this design is by the British designer, Michael Young. And today, the Chinese company, they work also with the Western designers. And the designer, when they design the products, it's very important also consider the consumption habits of their targeted market. So this teapot is made for Western market because European customers, they like to use the bigger teapot. And in China, traditional teapots, they're very small. And the European customers, they prefer the bigger teapots. So this design is made for Western market. And the designer, they need to think about which market they are going to sell the products, and you think about the consumption habits of this market. And this is a collection designed by the Japanese designer Okisato, so famous Nendo Studio. And this is the first time Nendo Studio works with a Chinese brand. And for this design, the craftsmanship is innovated. You will see the color is mixed into the porcelain, so you can get the different colors. Normally, when we see the porcelain teacups, they are always white, shining white. And for the first time, we have the colorful porcelain teacups. And you will see the tea cover is very funny. The tea cover is made from silicone. It's very soft. You can put it in your hand and press it, and can eliminate the work stress, for example. So the designers, they revitalized also the old Chinese crafts with the temporary design. So the variation crafts, such like the bamboo crafts, you will see the bamboo crafts is the most ancient crafts, traditional crafts in China. And silverware also, porcelain, silverware, and the gray teacups is very ancient. It's, I think the most people, they know, they will recognize this very easily, this traditional Chinese teapots. Okay, you will see a very cute design, a very cute design. This is a portable teapot that with teapot and teacup 2-in-1, and you can bring everywhere to make the sport, to travel, to go to office, and we will see the video, so you will see how it works. No music? And this teapot is created by a designer of 25 years old only. So it's a very young designer, and this is the actually happens in China now. So they are very focused in design. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Grace, for this very interesting presentation where we see the evolution of design within only 10 years in China. And with the evolution of this brand, ZENS, we can really notice how things have changed in 10 years. So now I invite both Grace and Beatrice to join me on stage for the debate. So my first question will be for both of you about, in the previous talk, we talk about craftsmen and designers, and I would like to know how high is the consideration for craftspeople and craftsmanship in China, for example, Grace, and then I will hear Beatrice about Japan.
Yeah, as I said, China is now very focused on design, and Chinese central government also. And last year in 2017, the Chinese Culture Ministry released a very important plan, which called the Plan on Revitalizing China's traditional crafts. So that means it's a national plan. The object is to protect Chinese cultural heritage. So that means the Chinese central government decided to make effort to develop the Chinese traditional crafts.
Maybe Beatrice about Japan?
Well, the history in Japan is a little bit different because as I said, the political situation in the 20th century was very different. So I think Japan has always considered his art with no hierarchy. So object, craft, and art was considered as the same level until we, Western culture, came in the last 19th century, and then came with our hierarchy of art and gave us, unfortunately, I think, this bad idea of considering, decorative arts lower than arts. But majorly, Japan has always considered, and as you know, the big difference between China and Japan, for example, is that craftsmen generally are anonymous, except maybe in Nissin pottery. But in Japan, generally you consider art and craft from father to son. So you always consider a family, you count in generation. So, for example, the Raku family, very famous, is today the 16th generation. So that's how it's considered, I think.
And do you know about the support of public authorities in Japan towards crafts and design?
Yes, the public authority is very helpful and has been very helpful in this maintain of the skills. Specifically when they created the National Living Treasures in the 1950s and 60s, and probably it's one of the inspiration also of the Maître d'Art in France, but even if it's a little bit different. But this is another way. I show you on purpose a very different way of surviving in the contemporary world, but national treasures are another way.
Thank you. We've seen with ZENS, with this lifestyle brand, and also some of you may know the brand Shangxia, who was founded by Hermès with Chinese skills, Chinese craftsmanship. We saw that even if in Europe and in Western countries, we may have forgotten these Chinese skills for a long time, because as you said, Grace, the country was closed. And nowadays, they encounter again a great success among Western customers. So would you say, is it a danger or a threat for European crafts?
I don't think it's a danger. No, I think it's different. The Chinese culture and the Western culture, European culture is different. I think the European culture is very strong. And when we say made in France or made in Italy, it means the high quality high security of products is very, very well known in China. I think because today the Chinese customers, they are looking for the high quality products and the high security products. That's an opportunity for the Western companies, Western, I mean the skills, the crafts, the craftsmen, craftswomen. I think it's an opportunity because the Chinese customers, they are ready to pay for that. They are ready to pay for that. So don't worry. I think for the Western craftsman or craftswoman, they need to work on their soft power. Your soft power is very strong. You have your own culture. You have your own innovation. That's very important. Innovation and your creation, your personality, your history, your emotion. That's you can make a very, make a very big, very good background for the customers, for the Chinese customers, because this they cannot copy. Because when we say it's dangerous because you are afraid that it can be copied, something like that. But this, they can't copy. This is yours. This is your power. This is your soft power. They can't do anything for that. So I mean, you can work hard on this soft power, and this is very strong.
Can I say something? Because maybe Grace will not say, because she's Chinese. But we don't have to forget that Chinese production in the 18th century was high-level luxury for European, and we copied them. We copy you for 200 years. So even if the 20th century now is also, made in China means cheap and low quality, we have to remember that for 200 years, China was luxury and high prices. That's why I said that we hope that made in China, and you prove it. And I think Changxia also is proving it, because when Hermès decided to support Chang Zhong-er, who was the creator, the founder of the company, she was very bright to think that the how to do had to be saved from to disappear. That was the risk. If Hermès decided to support that, it means that these skills, these crafts, it's kind of a way of getting in the patrimony also, patrimoine.
The heritage.
And, yes.
Thank you. Do we have a question from the audience to our speakers? Yes, here. Just 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isa Schoen from Switzerland. Where would you see, so first of all, thank you very much for sharing all your insights and all the background and giving perspective on it. That is really super helpful and opens up a huge opportunity. So, but where would you see actually the biggest opportunity to cooperate positively in order to bridge gaps, in order to bring the West and the East and the best of crafts and luxury together in the future?
Not easy. Beatrice.
I would say everywhere, if the question is where. I think everywhere, and all the, I think the new word is not innovation, technology, craftsman, or is collaboration. And really, when you see all what's happening now for like the last 10 years, when you see that these Japanese, I show you, craftsmen, collaborate with a Danish designer, when you see that Chinese and Japanese designer and craftsmen are working together, they were enemies not such a long time ago. So I think it's very optimistic. So everywhere would be my answer.
Yeah, I agree with you, with Beatrice. Yes, the cooperation is very important, and to understand the difference of culture is very important also, because when you want to sell your products in Asia, in China, for example, you need to understand the customers over there. You need to know what they think, how they live, understand them. And I think it's the best way to do the business, to have the business relationship over there. So this is very important because the culture is totally different between Asia and Europe. It's very important to know that. If the customers feel that you understand them, that's very easy.
And can I add something? And I think in the mass production of low-level, low-quality objects, good quality and extremely high-quality objects, there's something, I mean, there's a mass production everywhere in the world. And I think these collaboration also brings something different, not only exotic, but when Danish people see in their plate, in their table, some bamboo-made object made in Japan with a little of the Japanese spirit and a lot of the design, I think this little plus is making sometimes the difference, probably.
Another question over there.
I appreciate very much the revival and the combination of the traditional crafts with the modern design. And I'm always bothered by one question I want to ask you. Do you think it is correct to keep the production and the tradition secret in the family? And if the family disappears, then there's nothing that can be done? For example, there's production, I will use Murano, sometimes the Scarpa design cannot be recreated and nobody knows how it was done. In the way, it makes it precious, but if it happens all the time, we might lose the past. So I was asking you, what is your opinion about that? Especially because today, with the digital age, we can also preserve and record things, document yes. Production. Yeah.
I would say it's the same when you eat a delicious cake in one of your best friend's home. You ask for the recipe, but you never do the same cake in your home, even if you have the memory of the recipe. So the skills, in Japan, I totally agree with what you said. But you know, in China, for example, this eggshell technique, which is something extraordinarily hard to do, because of the political reason, it might have disappeared. So it was saved from, you know, only one person knows how to, not one, but few people. And he's keeping the secret because he wants to be the one that could steal. So every people in his workshop knows one part, but he's the only one to know the whole thing. I think it's a disaster, and it could be a disaster, but such is life.
Great. Grace, you want to?
Yeah, in China, this is not a problem because the government control everything. So, and the plan to release last year, one of the objectives is to increase the numbers of inventors. The person who continue with the techniques, the skills. So this government is doing this job. So I don't think this will be a secret.
That's interesting, maybe, because it's a point Beatrice mentioned the national living treasure in Japan. In France, in the 90s, the French Ministry for Culture invented, after the living treasure, the maître d'art. And the idea of the maître d'art is, of course, to acknowledge the masters, the very high skilled craftspeople in France, like in Japan. So they have an official recognition. But at the same time, the difference is, if you want to become a master, a maître d'art, you have to pass on your skills and your knowledge to somebody else. This is a kind of mission you have, and if you don't do so, you cannot be a master. And maybe there's a difference, and I think also it's something that is changing with the new generations. We talk about collaboration, and nowadays the young students are traveling all around the world. We talk about Chinese students who 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when the country started to be open, they went to Europe, they went to the US to study design, they went back to China, now they work with Japanese designers, with Japanese craftsmen, so they connected each other, and I think that's more and more like this. That's something very positive we can say. Are there any other questions before we finish? No questions? No? Okay. So thank you very much. Thanks, Beatrice.
Thank you.
Grace.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Yeah.
the Michelangelo Foundation for this great opportunity to have this conference here at Homo Faber. Thank you. Thank you to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.